Well, we said last night's game against Florida in the NIT Season Tip-Off in Brooklyn was going to be Pitt's first real test of the season, and I'd say that was accurate. Also wouldn't say they passed the test. It would seem like they failed that test, at least in the outcomes. The Panthers fell to the Gators last night, but I don't think it all was lost. I don't think it was a complete failure. As a matter of fact, I think it was probably a good experience for Pitt and one that'll help this team going forward. We're going to talk about it here on the Thanksgiving edition of the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to you. Hopefully it's a good, healthy, happy one. Hopefully you have a good day today and enjoy the holiday and whatever you choose to do. I'm sure you stayed up a little bit late last night and watched that game, Pitt against Florida. The Barclays Center in Brooklyn, the NIT Season Tip-Off. Panthers lose by 15, 86-71. It was a game they led for most of the first half, up until the final 35 seconds or so, and then it was all Gators after that. What happened in the game, and what can Pitt take from it going forward? That's what we're going to talk about today on the Morning Pitt. You know the deal, of course. What we ask you to do every day is like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com is the place we put all of our video content, whether it's these daily Morning Pitt videos Monday through Friday, our weekly live show like we did. We also did that last night. Before the game, it was a Panther-Lair pregame show, our first pregame show. Had a lot of guests. It was a lot of fun, actually. We had Jerry DePaula stop by, and Noah Hiles, and Chris Muller, and Stephen Gertz. We in addition to me and Jim Hammett, we had a lot of fun. Had some good conversations. It was a good time. So you can find that here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. But we did that live show. We do that every week, every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. We have our post-game shows after football games. We only have one of those left. That's going to be Saturday after the Duke game. I forgot what day of the week it was. It's only Thanksgiving. It's not like that's connected to a certain day of the week. But after the Duke game on Saturday, we will be live, hopefully probably around 3:30, somewhere around there for the post-game show right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of those things, subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on notifications. That way you'll get an alert sent to your phone every time we go live or every time we post a new video, and you won't miss anything we do right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And then, of course, the website below, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com and message boards to interact with other Pitt fans. All day, every day, Panther-Lair.com. Pitt fans are on there talking about Pitt sports. All day yesterday, they were looking forward to the Pitt-Florida game. All night last night, they were talking about the game, during the game in our game thread, and then after the game as well on our center court at the Pete message board. It was all right there. A lot of conversation with other Pitt fans. If you are a Pitt fan looking for other Pitt fans to talk to, that's the place to do it. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. So, Pitt lost to Florida last night. It was a game that they looked like they were in pretty good shape until the final. I think Florida took a lead with 35 seconds to go in the first half and ended up going into halftime up 5 on a buzzer beater 3. Pitt got back into it, took a lead on a Guillermo Diaz-Graham 3 with about 3 minutes into the second half. They were up 42-41. Florida pretty quickly made that. Well, no, wasn't quick. Yeah, it was about a minute, a little less than a minute. Went back ahead 44-42, and that was pretty much that was about as close as it would get. It would be 46-44 at one point, and they wouldn't be closer than that again. And everything after that, it just kept drifting away. And there are a lot of reasons that Pitt lost that game last night. I mean, I think basketball is always a game that you can get a lot out of the statistics. And when you look at the statistics of 35% from the field, 29% from 3, 62% from the free throw line, 24 of 68. That's not going to win you a lot of games. 10 of 34 from 3, that's pretty rough. 13 of 21 from the line and 14 turnovers. Yeah, it's not. This is how you lose a game. These are the kind of numbers that will indicate a loss, and these are the kind of stats that will point toward a loss. And certainly the story is there to be told as far as why they lost the game. What's more interesting to me, and it's sort of part and parcel of why they lost the game, is what they take from this game going forward. Because I really think Like I'm sitting here morning after the game, and I'm not too down about this. This is a great thing about basketball, is that they play 31 games. This isn't football where they play 12 games and there's one every week, and you have a game and then you've got 6 days to either celebrate the greatness of the team after a win, or be down in the dumps about how awful they are and they might not ever win a game again. It's not like that. I mean, they're going to play another game in 2 days, and after that they're going to have 25 more games that they play, or however many it is. And so it's pretty, it's nice because one game doesn't have to define you in basketball. And so you can really look at it and say, well, okay, what did they get out of that game? What do we take away from that game? What are some of the things they have to focus on and improve? And what are some things that should help them get better coming out of the game? And I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot from that game last night. It's going to help this team going forward. We talked so much heading into it about this being the first test, the first real test, the first real challenge. And it was, and it looked like it was. And I think you could tell right off the bat that it was a big change from North Carolina A&T and Binghamton and Florida Gulf Coast and Jacksonville to playing Florida. It was a big change. And I think you could almost see sort of those moments of realization for the players, particularly the younger guys, but the whole team, because they hadn't really been in that kind of situation before. And even when they were winning early on in the game, they were up 7-0 to start the game. They were up 19-10. It was pretty close after that. But even when they were ahead and tied for 19 minutes and 25 seconds in the second half, or in the first half, excuse me, you could still see, I think you could see the players sort of realizing, like, oh crap, like, these guys are defending us way tougher than any of those other 4 teams did. These guys are not letting us get away with a lot of things we got away with against those other teams. We're not able to do a lot of the things that we did against those other teams. And that's not to say that those things are the only things Pitt can do, and now they've got no answers. What I think they realized is that if they're going to score, and if they're going to make plays, and if they're going to win games, it takes that much more work. It takes that much more focus and that much more attention to detail, that every possession has to be near perfect. Because I think, and I didn't think it when I was watching the first 4 games. I didn't think like, oh, they're just playing sloppy. They're just coasting through against these teams. I thought, oh, they're going after it. They're getting after it. They're going hard. But there's another level it has to go to when the competition goes up. And I think you can see it. I noticed it in the first 5 minutes of the game last night. That they would do things. They would try to drive in certain ways or try to make certain passes. And it was just like, oh, that's not going to work. And that doesn't mean there aren't other things you can do to have success, but some of those sort of, I don't want to say lazier or more casual things, some of those sort of easier moves, like that's not going to work against Florida. It's not going to work against Oregon State. It's not going to work against West Virginia. It's not going to work against the ACC. It might work against Missouri. I don't know. They're in kind of a rough spot, but you understand my point. It's not going to work in those games. You're going to have to dial in a whole lot more. And that especially applies to the young players. I mean, Bub Carrington, 14 points in this game, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, 6 of 15 from the floor, 2 of 7 from 3. He wants to be the spark. He wants to be the guy who can ignite something for his team. And so he takes some of those threes, and he made them early. I guess he didn't make them that early, actually. He made one in each half, I think, maybe. But he's made those shots. And so he wanted to make those shots last night, but he ends up going 2 of 7. The shots just weren't falling, and some of them weren't good shots. Jeff Capel always talks about it's okay if you're taking good shots. I don't think he's going to look back at some of the shots that Carrington took, and I don't think he's going to look back at some of the shots that Blake Hinson took and say those were good shots. Some of them were, but I think a decent number of them were not. And I know there's always an interesting balance with Blake Hinson that what might not look like a good shot, you kind of let Blake get away with it because the shot goes down. Well, last night, Blake goes 3 of 9 from 3, 5 of 15 from the field. Shot wasn't going down. And I do think in the second half, I think you saw him, actually I'm going to bring up the stats here for the second half. Hinson went 0 of 3 from 3 in the second half. I think he changed his approach. He was 3 of 6 in the first half, 0 of 3 in the second half. I think he changed his approach. I think even right at the beginning of the half, I noticed it. His first bucket, the first basket of the second half that anybody scored, Hinson scored on a drive. I think he passed up an opportunity to fire up some of the shots that he would have been firing up in the past, and some of the shots that he fired up in the first half, and he passed it up and he drove. And I think you saw that throughout the second half. I think he kind of dialed it down a little bit, either recognized that the shot wasn't falling, or just realized that he needed to play a little bit differently against Florida. Florida smothered him. I mean, Florida blanketed Blake Hinson. They smothered Bub Carrington. They couldn't talk enough about it on the broadcast, and they were right. They were forcing Carrington to go to his left, and they were defending him in a way and with an intensity that he hasn't seen so far this season. He didn't see it from NC-A&T. He didn't see it from Binghamton or Florida Gulf Coast or Jacksonville. But he got it from Florida, and I think Bub Carrington came out of last night's game realizing, all right, this is college basketball. It's not as easy as it was in the first 4 games. You're not, it's not that easy to just waltz in and average 18 points per game. This is not to say that Bub Carrington's not a good player, and I don't think I can stress this enough. I still think Bub Carrington's really good. Blake Hinson's really good. Ishmael Leggett is a very useful player. He had he had a team high 19 points last night with 9 rebounds. He did commit 4 turnovers. But even he probably has some lessons to learn out of that. I think even he has some lessons to learn out of how he's got to attack and how he's got to protect the ball. I mean, there were too many times that somebody would just try to drive sort of almost out of control and end up in a spot where, there was no option. They might as well just step out of bounds because they're going to commit a turnover, either getting the ball swatted out of their hands, or a bad shot that gets blocked or easily goes for an easy defensive rebound, or they try and make a pass and it gets picked off. Because it happened because they drove too far. They drove when they shouldn't have driven. Florida collapsed on it and made it very unproductive to try to score like that. Whereas those types of things worked against the first 4 opponents. And these guys had to learn. They had to learn. Carrington had to learn. Jalen Lowe had to learn. Lowe played 9 minutes, scored 2 points, 1 of 3 from the floor, 2 rebounds. Not exactly a whole lot of playing time for Lowe out there. Carrington played 35. Carrington played 35. Leggett played 35. Hinson played 36. And then Federico and Austin played 23 each. Guillermo Diaz-Graham played 17. Will Jeffers played 13. Will came in and knocked down a 3 right off the bat and ended up with 3 rebounds and 3 points. Lowe played 9 and Jorge played 7. And I think the rotation tightened up. I still think this team can be a legitimate 9-man rotation, but they tightened up because they had to. They were really they were struggling. They were getting beat, And so I think they tried to, Jeff Capel tried to hone in on his guys. But as I sit here and I talk about how bad the numbers are and, all that shooting numbers, and I was just trying to add up real quick the numbers for Blake Hinson, Ishmael Leggett, and Bub Carrington. I think they combined to go 18 of 50 from the floor, 36% for basically your 3 leading scorers. That's not going to work. Clayton Jr. for Florida went 11 of 17. Tyrese Samuel went 9 of 11, scored 20 points. He had a double-double with 20 and 10. I thought at the beginning of this game when Micah, Hanlogden, I always mix up where the letters are in that name, but Micah Hanlogden got hurt in the first 50 seconds of the game. Kind of got flipped over Bub Carrington and ended up not playing after that. He only played 1 minute. I thought, okay, this is going to be an advantage for Pitt. It was an advantage for Pitt. It might have been better to have him out, but they still ended up getting Florida still ended up getting production out of the front court. They scored 44 points in the paint. And Samuel goes for 20 on 9 of 11. Condon goes for 11 on 4 of 8 shooting. They were still able to get what they wanted. And the front court defense was a problem. I mean, Federico, it sort of feels like if he's not, at least to, last night, it felt like if he wasn't blocking shots, which he ended up with 3 blocks, then he wasn't having much of an impact. Now, we've seen him have a big impact even when he's not blocking shots. I mean, we saw him against Armando Bacot at North Carolina last year. And yeah, I mean, he can make a big impact just playing half-court defense, not necessarily blocking shots, but he's not there yet. He's not there yet right now. And I think that's probably what I would say as I go down the roster. I mean, nobody's really where they need to be. Maybe Ishmael Leggett. Although 7 of 20 is not exactly an efficient night. And again, 4 turnovers, 4 fouls, although one of them was a terrible foul call. 3 of 8 from 3. Leggett did not play his best game, but he probably was Pitt's best player last night. So lessons learned, I think, and lessons that they'll be able to apply on Friday against Oregon State. They'll play the early game, so there'll be a 3 o'clock tip-off at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. I don't know if they're going to completely improve on what they showed last night. I don't know if they can totally internalize those lessons, but I do think, particularly for a guy like Bub Carrington, last night was an important game for him learning what it's going to take to succeed at this level. And that's not to say that I think he's been slacking thus far or that he underestimated how hard you have to work in game, possession to possession, on all the little details of how focused you have to be. I don't think he was slipping on those things or underestimating those things. I think you have to experience it. I think you have to go through it, and they didn't go through it. He didn't go through it, and the rest of these guys didn't go through it for the first 4 games. As a matter of fact, they went through the opposite, where they were able to do those things, where they were able to play with maybe not giving everything on every possession. But now they're finding out, or they should have found out from last night's game, that you do. You do have to do it all. You do have to work that hard. And that's probably the most important lesson. I mean, look, we'll have our guy Steven Gertz will have a film breakdown, and he'll talk about the things that worked or didn't work and what they need to improve and where they were pretty good or where they're not good enough and all this kind of, and I'll learn from that breakdown and you'll learn from that breakdown. But to me, when I look at it, I just think it's a matter of an eye-opening experience for all these guys. They're this is what it takes. This is what it's going to be like. When you get into the ACC, you're going to face this kind of challenge. Florida looks like a pretty decent team. Clayton can play. Kugel is good. Aberdeen had Poulin had a big game. Not Aberdeen. Aberdeen played 5 minutes. Poulin had a big game, though. 29 minutes, 10 points, 8 assists. Obviously, Samuel had a huge game. When they get hand-logged him back, that'll be big. I think Florida seems like a good team. Maybe not the top of the SEC, maybe not the bottom. But that's what you're going to face sort of night in and night out in the ACC. And now you've seen it. And if you're Bub Carrington, if you're Jalen Lowe, if you are Zach Austin and Ish Leggett, if you're Blake Hinson, you need to adapt your game and adjust your game and step your game up. You need to take a step forward and reflect some of the lessons that you got out of last night's game, because I think there should have been a lot. All right, I think that's about it for us today. I think that's all we have to say about that game. If you missed the pregame show, obviously we talked a lot previewing the game, but that's right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, so you can go watch that one. And then, of course, tomorrow we'll have the mailbag edition of the Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So look forward to that. Lots of questions about coaching changes in the transfer portal, so we'll have a good discussion there, I think, for sure. In the spirit of the day, thank you for watching this video today, watching these videos all week, watching these videos all football season, watching these videos all summer and all throughout the year and however long. We've been doing these morning pits for more than a year, I think, right? Yeah, I think we started it a year and a half ago. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But I appreciate everybody who watches. And it's Thanksgiving, so I just want to say a special thanks to everybody. I hope you have a great holiday. I hope you have a great day. Doing whatever it is that you want to do. I hope it's safe. I hope it's happy. I hope you spend it with people who matter and mean a lot to you. That's what I plan to do, and probably write and talk a little bit about Pitt somewhere in there as well. Pitt always comes up with the family reunions and family dinners and holidays and all things like that. So I'm sure we'll be talking about last night's game quite a bit over the turkey today. Enjoy your day. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow with another Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.